So good afternoon, Paul Schnell, the Commissioner at the Department of Corrections, just to talk about the incident that occurred today at Stillwater. It started just before 8 o'clock this morning when one of the staff responded to a man who was reportedly smoking in his cell. That staff member experienced very quickly an adverse response to the smoke that was coming from that cell. That adverse response resulted in him feeling a sense of nausea, lightheadedness, and an increased heart rate. He was transported to the hospital. Others then who responded to also to that incident, sometime later, within about 30 minutes, 3 more staff required transport to the hospital. Then there was a separate incident that occurred where some substances were thrown onto the floor near some staff. Those 2 staff also became overwhelmed with this experience of nausea and lightheadedness. They were transported to the hospital, and then ultimately a 9th person ended up going by a state car. Ultimately, all the staff were transported to Lakeview Hospital. They were treated, evaluated, and released, fortunately, and we don't expect any lasting kind of injury as a result of this. We are really focused on trying to determine exactly what the substance is that people were impacted by. We're also very interested in knowing what the source is, and that has been a major focus of our investigative unit in an effort to try and determine exactly how these substances are coming in. What we know, what we believe, is that this is a synthetic form of a cannabis. K2, which has been around for a long time. Some you may remember this being referred to as spice many years ago, where kids were accessing it in certain tobacco shops. The difference today is it's no longer in that form. It's liquefied. It ultimately gets soaked into paper that does not show any watermarks. That paper then can be used to submit letters from people on the outside, gets sent in through the mail, and that can be torn up into small pieces, and that can end up being distributed to people, and that's what's being smoked. These products are available online in many instances, and people are buying them, and they can have their kids color a picture on it, send it into the prison, and then ultimately this gets distributed. We know that this stuff is very dangerous, and we know that it impacts both our population, and obviously now it's beginning to impact staff. It is a little unusual that we are seeing this as a passive inhalation by staff, obviously, that are being impacted. And in some instances, some of the people who are using the substance are not having the severity of reaction. Although some people have gotten very sick, and in fact, we are currently investigating a couple of incidents that we believe that deaths may have occurred because of the ingestion of this substance. And we have some cases pending toxicology. So you may have heard that there was reports of some of this stuff happening also at the Waseca Women's Prison yesterday. That was reported, I believe, on the Star Tribune. And so this is a national issue that's affecting corrections across the board. There's a whole variety of strategies that the Department of Corrections here and across the country have been doing. Everything from today, we have a pilot project that's going on at Stillwater. Started about a month ago, where we are photocopying the vast majority of mail that comes in. So if a letter comes in, we photocopy it and we provide them with a copy, and the original is then retained so that it doesn't go into the population. We also know that it can come in through other ways. Sometimes magazines. We always are looking at, and you may have seen that there was an arrest of some staff at Faribault. Last week, I believe, it was reported, and there was some smuggling going on there, and we want to be really clear, and I can tell you on behalf of our staff, there is nothing our staff want more than to hold people who are on our staff who are providing contraband to people accountable. And so we are committed to that across the board, everyone is, but we have to address the safety of our staff and the safety of the people we serve by trying to mitigate the introduction of these substances into the facility. So that's kind of where we sit today. We do also have some machines that we deploy in the facilities that effectively we run the mail through. It does a detection. It is not foolproof. You can have false positives and false negatives that can happen. So we are looking to create the best ways possible to manage and mitigate risk for staff. Part of the reason that the facility is locked down and will remain locked down through tomorrow is to allow staff to provide the directions around protocols to suspected incidents like this. That will be use of respirators or N95 masks in terms of response protocols and those sorts of things, and then just double ensuring that we always have Narcan available for the good of our staff as well as for the people we serve. So with that, I would stand for any questions that people may have.
Hey, Commissioner, Jonah Kaplan from CCO. We met several weeks ago, talked about this, and then we went to Faribault and saw the mail pilot program. So not all, I was under the assumption, or it was explained to us that all the mail was being screened. You said now the vast majority, so mail is still getting through?
So legal mail has a different designation. Remember that legal mail is mail that has to be opened in the presence of that person and generally provided to them. So when I say, generally all mail, legal mail may not be. And remember that we also have found some instances where legal mail did not turn out to actually be legal mail.
We saw that too.
And so these are things that our staff are digging into, but that requires some investigation to determine, is this a legitimate legal mail or not? And so that pilot, it does deal with the vast majority of mail, but there are things too where we've become aware that there have been some instances in which books or magazines have been had this stuff put into it as well through a variety of mechanisms that people use in the community to get these things in. So, there's oftentimes we're playing catch up. What is the next thing that we have to stay in front of to try and address this? And I think the key thing right now is, we have identified some individuals and some groups that we believe are actively conspiring with people on the inside. And we are firmly committed to, when we can establish a case, to get them presented and charged to the fullest extent of the law.
So do we know if this was from legal mail or a book or a magazine, or that's kind of a working, I don't know if assumption is the right word, but theory of how it might have gotten past the mail?
We do not know if this actually came in prior to the start of the pilot.
That was the other thing. Like, it could be sitting there.
Exactly.
Days, right? And
so these are the things that we knew. We are tracking from the mail pilot. This mail pilot was done in 3 facilities, as is being referenced here, where we're doing the vast majority of this photocopying. And we are noting a reduction in incidents of suspected use. We are, and those sorts of things. So we are seeing data that says that these pilots are working, but we just don't know if this was a contraband that had been introduced prior to the start of the pilot, which we think, could be a part of the problem, but we just simply don't know.
Is mail, I'm just wondering, is it tons of mail that comes to inmates every day? I mean, what kind of a load are you looking at?
Massive amounts of mail come into each facility every day. It remains one of the big ways that people communicate, and is an important, obviously, communication tool for people. But the amount of mail is stunning, and in some instances, processing that mail and photocopying can really delay the distribution of mail weeks. And this has become an issue in other states who have done these different, copying projects or scanning projects, and where there has been challenges around some of that. And so, we're really mindful of wanting to make sure that we're efficient with these processes, but safety has to be the prevailing consideration.
And aside from the pilot program, are there any other protocols in place to protect staff members moving forward?
Yeah, I think we talked about we want to make sure that we aren't just having people run into these cells. Because again, I think our people are helpers, right? When there's something going on that they want to intervene in, or if somebody is in, an incarcerated person because of them using this stuff is under some level of distress, the desire of staff is to go in and help, or to address or stop that incident. And yet at the same time, we have to make sure that we slow that down, make sure respirators are in place and all the safety gear is in place, and that we have all the tools to effectively intervene so that we can do that and not have our staff as exposed to the risks that we saw today.
How do you think these inmates are communicating with their people on the outside to get this stuff to them? Have you identified any messages potentially that could link back to that?
Yeah, I think, our intel folks are, working very closely. We monitor, all phone calls that are made are recorded in correctional facilities. So those calls get listened to by intel people. They certainly, as a result of investigations like that, like happening today, they hear and learn a lot from people in the population. And we can begin to piece together who on the outside is communicating and maybe a part of delivering this in. Now, we want to make sure that we have those cases thoroughly and fully developed. And so that's really the focus of our investigators. But, it's deeply concerning because, certainly we're always concerned about the safety and well-being of our staff, but, even our population. We want to make sure that those respirators are available to people in the population, because if you have somebody living next to you who's accessing or using this stuff, we don't want it to impact other people in the population who are serious about doing what they need to do. And so we want to make sure that they have access to those tools as well. And so we're committed to making sure these things happen. But yeah, we do have some people that we're focused on. And we do know that those communications are taking place in a variety of ways. Phone calls oftentimes, could be mail. And that's how these kind of conspiracies are being coordinated.
Was the person, that was in the cell today with the substance, were they already on your radar for this type of thing? Or are they someone you just learned about?
I don't know for sure what they were. I mean, are we concerned about, obviously, contraband in correctional facilities has been an issue from the beginning of time. And so, dealing with contraband is a top security priority, whether that's substances, cell phones, or weapons. Always it has to be a priority. But this is a new dynamic because it's affecting an environment, and we're mindful that we had nine staff affected. How widespread could this become? And we need to make sure it's mitigated for the well-being of everyone who both lives in and works in these facilities.
Paul, did you do something similar to this a month ago or so where like a corrections officer ended up getting Narcan? Was there a tie there?
Yeah, I mean, this has been across the system and really across the country where we have seen staff get impacted. And this is not the first time we've had staff who have gone out to be checked. We never had a number like this, and quite as the way it rolled out, right? We had one staff and then three others and then others. So it just became a growing concern to the point that there was coordination with the hospital about what is occurring here and how big of a problem is this going to potentially become.
Just to clarify, so there were two incidents. Does that mean that there were two residents of the facility and two different substances involved in this sequence, or?
We don't know if there were two different substances. The sequence, the first one was the response to the smoking. The units are locked down. What I'm told is that somebody had thrown a milk carton down from one of the tiers that landed somewhere near some staff. It's believed that there may have been something in that, whether somebody tried to drop some of that soaked paper into that, and that was enough to cause those two staff that were affected by that to start feeling those effects of nausea and dizziness and lightheadedness. So though they were two separate incidents in the same housing unit, but different people.
And just to confirm, you're still investigating what the substance was, but you have an idea of what
Yeah, and we have in previous incidents, done some testing in this Panaka, which is a synthetic cannabinoid, and yet you never really know what's in this stuff. You never really, and that's the part I think that is the frightening part, is that people are ingesting something that they have no idea, and the chemical compounds can change. We've had some of this stuff, these tests as though it's positive, like a fentanyl. So this is really concerning stuff, and they can make slight variations in the chemical compounds, and you just don't know what the effect is on the human body. And both here and around the country, there's been a lot of concerns about its impact on people's health and the fact that people are losing their life using this stuff.
Is Stillwater more of a problem than Oak Park and other facilities, or?
No, I would say that, Stillwater has had some of these issues. I think certainly Faribault has been one of them where, we have struggled with some of this as well. That's another site of the pilot. And so Moose Lake, we had an incident where a man was taken out and pronounced dead yesterday. Yes, yeah, it was yesterday. And that was a result. We don't have any official findings yet, but we are concerned that may be related to the use of these synthetic substances, and that will ultimately be a determination by the medical examiner. But it speaks to the really significant risk that exists when we're talking about these unknown substances that are unregulated and deeply concerning.
I think you mentioned earlier that there's a number of other pending cases. Do you have any idea how many there are in the state, or how many confirmed cases there are of deaths related to this sort of issue?
We I think have looked at. I think last year we had two one for sure that was confirmed. We have a couple that are pending now, more recently, that we're waiting on medical examiner determinations as to the manner and cause of death. But there, in some cases, we found evidence that would suggest the use of the smoking materials, and that's where we really want to focus on, the distribution of that substance is effectively causing the death of people in the population, and God forbid, we certainly don't want to have anything happen to anyone, but certainly our staff as well, who are trying to respond to help and to maintain the safety of these facilities.
So going forward, like when your officers get like a report of an inmate smoking, will there be any changes? Like, will they have to wear like an additional like mask, like any equipment when they respond to these calls?
Yeah, so that would be going forward if we have an incident of suspected use of this stuff, smoking, they would be required to gear up before they do entry, and because if our staff are involved, we have to deal with not just the person that we're trying to respond to help. Now we have to deal with all of the responders as well. And so I think just to slow that down and make sure that we're really approaching this in the safest way possible is critical. Anything else?
You might have mentioned this before I got here. The group of people that you sort of identified, is staff part of that? As
the potential for like how it could come in? Certainly, yeah, we talked about, we had a case in Faribault last week that there was a prosecution. We identified a staff person who was involved in, setting up and bringing in contraband, and, working this through with some people on the inside and outside. And there was a formal prosecution of that, two staff down there. And so, yeah, we want to make sure that we're focused on every possible means of introduction.
I know that the staff members have been released from the hospital, but have you had a chance to talk with any of them? Like, how are they doing, and will they be back at work soon, or are they going to be kind of off for the rest of the week?
No, I think many of them, some of them actually came right back to the facility, and which we're really pleased about. We want to make sure that they're well and safe and sound, and so we're really pleased to see them all get released. But we also want to make sure that, the other thing, we just don't know, like, what is the full impact of ingestion of these substances? And, it's hard to imagine. Our staff were impacted by passive inhalation, And we have people that are actively smoking this. And, you know, I think it just speaks to what the impact has to be is really profound. All right. Thank you so much. And just you know, just because, not that we necessarily want to show up, but I mean, paper stuff is available. You can buy it online. It's not, you guys looked at it, it's not hard to find. You know, K2 or synthetics silk papers, you can buy it for $400, $500, $600 a sheet.
Can the inmates, and I notice you call them incarcerated people, are you not calling them inmates anymore?
Yeah, that's,
Okay, sorry.
that's right.
Can they purchase things that get delivered to the prison?
They can purchase things that get delivered. We control, like they couldn't purchase that, for instance. And, you know, they can't just order off of any website.
Okay.
But there are things that ways people can get stuff in through a variety of means. So,
Thank you.
all right. Thank you, appreciate it.